We cannot believe we live in a world where there's a large number of people who still believe in nonsense regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Even worse, there are people who actually spread misinformation about vaccinations being administered to protect against the virus. Spotify has managed to lose more than $2 billion in market value after Neil Young punished the streaming giant and protested against it for spreading misinformation regarding the vaccine through Joe Rogan's podcast. Let's dive into it. So, who is Joe Rogan and why is he controversial? Of course, since there are millions of people who listen to his podcast, Joe isn't just a random guy with a podcast. But for those of you who may not be aware of his works, Rogan is a 54-year-old stand-up comedian, former reality television host, as well as MMA enthusiast and commentator. In 2009, he launched his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. The podcast is a long-form conversation show and has featured everyone from Miley Cyrus and Kanye West to Bernie Sanders and Elon Musk. In fact, Musk actually got high during his interview with Rogan. In 2020, Spotify acquired Joe's show for more than $100 million, which soon became the platform's top-rated podcast. The entire controversy began earlier in January when around 270 scientists wrote a letter to Spotify talking about Joe Rogan and how he is spreading dangerous misinformation regarding the COVID-19 virus on his podcast. They referred to an episode that aired in December of 2021 in which Rogan was interviewing a doctor, Robert Malone, clearly an anti-vaxxer, who was making claims that the American public had been hypnotized into getting vaccinated and wearing protective gear like the masks. They shared that the platform is actually allowing messages to be aired which harm the image of science and decrease the trust that the public has on scientific research, ultimately bringing into question the credibility of data-driven guidance that medical professionals can offer because they're letting people like Rogan spread propaganda by not stopping the host from spreading societally harmful assertions. Next, we have Neil Young and others reacting to Joe's show. Earlier this week, Young continued to contribute to the downfall of Spotify by announcing he will be pulling his music off the streaming giant service. He was very vocal about Spotify not taking a stand against Rogan or his podcast. He accused Spotify of spreading false information regarding the vaccines against the virus because they continue to support anti-vax propaganda being promoted on podcasts like that of Joe Rogan. He said that by allowing such a horrible thing from happening, Spotify might be the reason why a lot of people lose their lives because they believe the disinformation that Rogan had been spreading. And he took his leave in the coolest manner, giving Spotify an ultimatum of sorts, saying that they could either have Rogan or keep Young, but not both. Artist Joni Mitchell also followed in Young's footsteps and announced the removal of her music from Spotify too. She called Spotify and Rogan irresponsible and said that the lies that they had been spreading were actually having fatal consequences and costing people their lives. She shared that she will be standing with Neil Young and the global medical and scientific communities in solidarity on this issue. After this, several others belonging to the music industry also weighed in and shared their thoughts on the matter. The widow of Andy from Gang of Four, Catherine Mayer, criticized the music platform for giving a home to anti-vax sentiments. Taking advantage of the situation, however, still agreeing to Young's stance, rival music streaming services like Apple Music and Tidal shared that they supported Young's decision to terminate his contract with Spotify. They then proceeded to promote Young's music on their own platforms. Now let's take a look at counter responses amid the controversy. Some people also came out to back not only Spotify for hosting the show on their platform, but also Rogan's show itself for what they know best, standing up to the government, which wants to apparently take away their freedom. Among the group of supporters was a guy you may know from Disturbed as its frontman, David Draymond. Draymond actually applauded Rogan and his podcast for not capitulating to the mob. That's right, Dave, because having the freedom to not wear masks or get vaccinated from a deadly virus is clearly more important than, say, dying from said virus. So is Spotify losing money? Over merely a span of 3 days, the market capitalization for the audio streaming platform fell about $2.1 billion after folk rocker and dearly beloved Neil Young took his songs off Spotify in order to protest Joe's misinformation fest of a podcast. From January 26th through 28th, the shares of Spotify fell 6%, while those for the NASDAQ Composite Index saw a 1.7% rise in them. Their stocks had already been low since the beginning of the year, and a broader market upturn a couple of days ago saw the streaming platform stocks recovering slightly at $172.98 per share. But all of that was before Joni Mitchell announced to pull her music from Spotify too. On closing its stock on Thursday, January 27th, Spotify reportedly reached a month low of $171.32 per share a day after Young's announcement. Of course, it's worth mentioning that the streaming platform was facing a downward slide as of January 25th, when its stock plummeted around 25%. Spotify's investors have obviously been rattled by the news and are worried about the signs that show Spotify's growth slowing down. In the wake of Young's ultimatum and Spotify deleting his music, hashtags to cancel and delete Spotify began trending all over social media. And Now, the investors are seriously concerned that artists leaving one by one could actually end up snowballing in the near future and would cause a significant number of customers to cancel their subscriptions. What exactly is Rogan worth? Rogan hosts the #1 podcast on Spotify, according to the streaming platform's own reports. Critics are constantly drawn to his podcast because he is constantly getting into controversies for being all buddy-buddy with several right-wingers and sharing anti-masking and anti-vax sentiments. Dr. Anthony Fauci has also spoken up against the podcast and its host on multiple occasions, but this new controversy has certainly blown up to a new level that clearly neither Rogan nor Spotify could have predicted, although they should have been able to. Young even went so far as to comment on how degraded and neutered the quality of the streamer's podcast actually is. To make matters worse for Spotify, Young also went ahead and announced his partnership with Amazon, saying that he'll be giving Amazon Music Unlimited new customers by putting his music up on the platform for 4 months free of the premium streamer. However, in July last year, the New York Times wrote a piece on how Joe is too big to cancel. The article spoke about how among Spotify's top leadership, people who are familiar with what the company is all about say that it is laughable to believe that Rogan has any reason to cause any problems for the executives. We wonder if the executives at the company are still laughing at the idea of Rogan being a nuisance and more of a liability than a money-making machine. Now, a recent update. Rogan apologizes to Spotify. Not only has Rogan apologized, he has also addressed the controversy surrounding his podcast. After Spotify removed both Young and Mitchell's music, Rogan actually thanked Spotify for being supportive during this time and then apologized to them that because of him, they had to take all the heat from the people. He then also went on to apologize to Mitchell and Young. He posted a 10-minute long video on his Instagram account sharing that he is actually open to making changes to the show and is willing to book mainstream experts instead of controversial ones. He also promised to do a lot more research on important topics before the episodes, praising Spotify for their latest decision to add advisories to all types of material mentioning the pandemic and for directing the platform's users to public health websites to gain more information. Rogan also explained that it wasn't his intention to spread misinformation and that he doesn't do it to be controversial either. All he does is talk to people and they share what they share. He said he is responsible for scheduling guests himself and he doesn't always make the right call. This Monday, following Rogan's apology, of course, Spotify shares went up 12%, and Citi, after upgrading the stock, noted that the company could improve its ad-supported monetization. We can see that Rogan's apologetic, and he has definitely done a good job at showing people how horribly he feels by saying all the right things, but it is definitely important for him to be responsible in the future and ensure that he doesn't repeat similar mistakes and cause Spotify any more damage. As to what the future holds for Young and Mitchell's future relationship with Spotify, we haven't heard any talks of their return to the platform as of yet. And that's a wrap for this video. Do you think Joe Rogan should be reprimanded for his decision to spread misinformation about the COVID-19 vaccination, or has he learned his lesson? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. And we'll see you in the next one.